Hi there. This time we actually get to see the ugly grin on my face. Yeah, I'm back with another video. This time I want to talk about another subject that really means a lot to me, and that is the subject of veganism. I have been a vegan for coming up 5 years. I wanted to do a video about the use of cars versus eating meat in terms of the CO2 usage. The methods I have used is I have only chosen to talk about the personal use of cars and the personal use of meat. There are statistics from the European Commission which detail both how many kilometers are driven in personal and business usage, and I could have put those numbers together, but instead of doing that, I've only taken the personal numbers, because then I could also just talk about what people eat at home and not what they do in their business lives. For example, I work in a workplace where there is almost meat on the plate every day if I chose to eat there. So I could also have included that if I wanted to include the business numbers, but I have only chosen to focus on the personal usage of both of these things. If we first look at them, and if it looks like I'm reading off of something in a moment, it's because I've done some math and it's on a document. Now, the EU Commission has a goal of reducing the average CO2 emission of cars down to about 130 grams per kilometer driven. I'm just going to take this as the average, even though it is a goal and not a factual average, which actually makes this an underestimation. And another statistic I found, which I mentioned, details the kilometers driven in personal and business usage within the EU. It takes the average from 6 different European countries: France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, and the UK. And what we find when we look at these numbers, add them up and divide them out, again, I have actually undercut some of these numbers a little bit. For example, if you look at the Monday to Friday, you'll see that France has about 16 kilometers of an average per day, but I have just put 15 down in my calculations to be a little more underestimating than overestimating. I've done the, but Monday to Friday, the drivers over these 6 EU countries averagely drive around 19 kilometers per day. And then on Saturdays, that average is about 24 kilometers, and on Sunday it averages to 29 kilometers. This comes to a total personal usage of cars to 72 kilometers per week. And if we multiply this out to the entire year, this comes to around 3,744 kilometers driven for personal usage. And then if we add that up with the I've put down 0.130 kilos of CO2 emitted instead of 130 grams. I've just converted it to kilos, and then cups out, and then I've multiplied that with the 3,744, and then we come to a total average emission of 486.72 kilos per car for personal use. Now, before I talk about the numbers for meat consumption, I want to point out that I know that I'm close to doing the mistake of underestimating the numbers for the cars, and if I had done so, I could have overestimated the numbers for meat eating, which would make it seem like the meat eating was way worse than it really is, and the cars way better than they actually are. So that's also why I have taken to downsizing the amount of meat a lot. In my example, for the meat consumption, we have a family of 4 people, and they only eat beef around 2 times a week. I think we can all agree this is quite an underestimation to the average citizen who eats meat. And then I have done some more math, yay. The beef emissions, and these statistics can be found, all of the statistics I mentioned throughout the video can be found in the description box. The beef emissions are around 13 kilos of CO2 emitted per kilo of beef. This means that about a half a pound of steak is around 3.25 kilos of CO2 emitted. If a family of four, as I mentioned before, eats steak or beef twice a week with no other meat in their diet at all, this comes to around 26 kilos of CO2 per week, which comes to around 1,352 kilos of CO2 emitted per year. When you compare, and this is a personal underestimated usage, and if you compare this to the cars, you can the family could give both of their children cars to drive around for personal usage, and it still wouldn't be as much as if they ate meat twice a week. They could actually drive around in 2.777 something, a lot of sevens, 8 cars before the CO2 emissions from their car uses was as bad as their meat eating habit. Yeah, so that's pretty much the video. If you have any questions, I'm happy to clarify in the comment section, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.